Today I want to talk about Ribis Karka, Ribis Perutah. It's old Torah, only it's not old wine in new bottles, but old wine in a single new bottle. The single new bottle is designed, it's complicated, it's not hard, I hope it won't be long, but you have to keep cheshbon. If you don't keep cheshbon, it gets lost in the middle. So what I did, how much it's worth for itself or not, I don't know, but suddenly in my old age I became interested in Parshanut HaMikra. And I think we can put it into a framework of Parshanut HaMikra. Let me begin with the Chekira in terms of how to translate a posuk. The posuk is two words. It's not a whole posuk. Neshech Kesef. What is Neshech Kesef? There are two ways to define the phrase, I think. Either you're talking Neshech Shehu Kesef. The Neshech is Kesef. Kesef is the Neshech. Or it can be a genitive, Neshech of Kesef. Neshech that comes from Kesef, it's related to Kesef in one way or another. You'll ask me, L'may nafkamina? No nafkamina. Except when you flip it on the other side and you talk about what you're being memayit. When we're memayit, things that are not b'chlal Neshech Kesef, like Karka and Pachot MiShaveh Perutah, what are we being memayit? Are we being memayit the things that are themselves not kesef, the things that themselves are karka, or themselves Pachot MiShaveh Perutah, or things that are derived from or related to, associated with, or to use the English phrase, the genitive of kesef and Pachot MiShaveh Perutah. So let me begin. First, we begin with the thesis in Bava Metzia, Samach Aleph. I have trouble reading, unfortunately, but let me try to go through it as much as we have to. So the Gemara says that we have a series of Yalfusas here, and we're Marber, we're Memayit, and then thesis begins. Says this is all a klal prato klal. Dover mufurish dover hametaltel gufei momen yosuk hakoyish hametaltel yosuk ponshor brutishin momen. He says that we have a klal prato klal. He says here b'chadesh we have a klal prato klal. That's what he wants to establish, that we're memayit karka and ein gufei momen for the klal prato klal. He says mashmoyes versus mashmoyes diktoni. We're talking about estan zoino, and the whole whatever the Gemara is talking about, that is when you're seicher, and your question is what are you being seicher with? You have to be seicher her. How do I know this? Because Rabbi Yirmiyah said, "Sochram b'karka mahu, Pachot MiShaveh Perutah mahu." So we have a shaila there, a sofik in the Gemara, whether Karka or Pachot MiShaveh Perutah counts as esnan zaina. The shaykh ribis b'karka, Pachot MiShaveh Perutah, my boy, they're deriving there from ribis, and if there is ribis and karka or Pachot MiShaveh Perutah, my boy, what could be the shaila? How can you make a shava from something that doesn't exist? Elavadai potter. Of course, in ribis there's no chiyuv for Pachot MiShaveh Perutah or for karka. Boy, kivin to goma me ribis malol potter afkan potter. The only question is, do we have exert shove from ribis to esnan zaina? Now he comes v'hod oma berachin. This is the crucial part of Taisus. After Taisus is established that we have some kind of a gzeira shove, that we have a kind of a klal prat, he wants to know berachin gabibot erechaimo ribis gemurahi v'teira hitiro. We have ribis gemuro. The ribis is in kesef, it's in the deras karka, and you have the halva is the karka, and the teru is materit, and it's ribis gomor. So kashi is, why is it ribis gomor? It's karka bekarka. Says Tosfos, it's not karka bekarka. Why is it not karka bekarka? Because hosom hilva mois al karka. There he went and he lent mois for the karka. Avol karka bekarka. But if you lent karka for karka, and the ribis is also in karka, Efshir the shori minotera. He's saying karka bekarka. Everything is karka, then it's muter minotera. If it's not everything bekarka, then it's not muter minotera. So, Tosfos is now telling me that we know all of this from Botei Rechaimon. What is it that we know? We know that if you're malve karka bekarka and the ribis is and the ribis is kesev, so there's an issa ribis minotera. Now, if you go back to Tosfos, and Tosfos is telling me that the only thing that's muter is karka bekarka and ribis and karka, and I want to know how am I supposed to define the miyut. So I can define it with a joke. Only I'm afraid that the Sfardim in the room won't understand the joke. Not necessarily that others will understand it either. But I'll give you this. This is something that's remained in my mind. Once upon a time, I was sitting in a restaurant, and in walks a fine Jew. He was robust in stature. He was a Hungarian. And he sits down and he orders a meal. And the waiter asks him whether he wants rice or potatoes. And he stares out in the far distance, and he says in Yiddish, Hungarian Yiddish, alle beide. Now, in my Yiddish, you don't say alle beide, you don't say all of two, you say two, all three maybe, but so you say two. And I looked at me, this is a strange mode of expression. It's like a ravison. So you have here, you have in terms of in terms of how you're going to read the posuk Neshech Keshev, it seems that what is Tosfos telling me, that included in Neshech Keshev, forget about what you have to take out. In there is alabeda. You've got to have Neshech Keshev, the Neshech is Kesef, or it's related in one way or another to Kesef. You have all the, piling up the Yisurim, one on top of the other. If the ribis is Kesef, it's Osir, or if the Kesef is Osir, only the ribis is something else, it's all Mutter, it's all Osir. It's only when you have the halva of Kesef and the ribis of Kesef. That's what Tosfos is telling us. Comes along the Smam, and he tells us that if you have mois, and the ribis is karka, that's the other flip side of this coin. I lent you, here Tosfos has mois karka bekarka, and the ribis is karka, that's mutter. If you have, and the Smas telling me that either way you do this, unless you have all three, the halva, the return, and the ribis in karka, it's all also. So he tells me that mois and the ribis is karka. The ribis turns out to be karka, but it's mois. He tells me it's also also. It's an isur deraisa. Comes along Rebbe Kiveger, and Rebbe Kiveger has a kasha. Rebbe Kiveger says that he understands, even according to the Sma, if I borrow a half a pruta for 3/4 of a pruta, everything here is less than a pruta. The halva is less than half a pruta, the return is less than half a pruta, and the ribis is less than half a pruta. That seems to be muter minatera, no question whatsoever. But one of the other examples that you would have in ribis box MiShaveh pruta is if I take a pruta and I lend it for a pruta and a half. There, There's certainly a Perutah involved. There was a Perutah b'Perutah, only it's a Perutah with a Perutah and a half. If you tell me that if there's any one of these things that fits in Neshech Keshev, it's Osir, this should be Osir also. So maybe in Ochanami, maybe it's Osir also. So Stasis, that's absolutely impossible. I'm sorry. How do I know it's absolutely impossible? Because we have a Taisis in Ksubis, Daf Mem Vav Amud Aleph. Again, we deal with the Alfusas here. The Alfusas. The Gemara is now telling us how you would derive ribis, the Isra from Metzia, from Yoreh, and Gesel. From one you can, from the other you can't. Put them both together and you can. So there's a Taisis, and Taisis here says Taisis. V'hod Omer Berchen, Gabi Bot Yoreh Chaim. Before that, so he says, yeah. So the Gemara tells me, the Gemara says in Kashas, why do I need a Yalfusa for ribis directly? Learn out the Issa ribis from Gezel and Yoreh. So Stasis, if there would be any seer of Gezel, which would be of ribis would be osir, which isn't osir for Gezel and Yoreh, then you would need a new Yalfusa, a brand new Yalfusa. And the Gemara keeps telling me you don't need a brand new Yalfusa. So Stasis, Loma Yekosach Mond Lab Gezel Lab Ribis Lab Yoreh V'im Yesh Ribis Mishum Pochus MiShaveh Perutah, who Itzrich Lab Ribis LePochus MiShaveh Perutah. If there be any haif and any tzir in which the ribis is less than the Shaveh Perutah, then I need a new limud, because less than a Shaveh Perutah is not Gezel and it's not a Yoreh. So a Perutah and a half a Perutah should turn out to be should be osir, because otherwise, should be mutter, because otherwise I need a new Yalfusa for it. I don't have a new Yalfusa, which means that it's mutter. So what is Rabbi Krieger establishing? Rabbi Krieger establishing is that a Perutah for a Perutah and a half is osir. Taisus is telling me that it has to be osir, and I have to know that it has to be mutter. It has to be mutter, because otherwise I would need a pasuk to tell me that's osir. How do I know it's not osir? I need a pasuk to tell me it's osir. So Tosis is establishing that that's mutter, and that's a steer to the Sma. If he thinks that in Karka, it has to be everything Karka, otherwise there's no heter. So Shaveh Perutah should also be the same thing. And why is this Sma telling me that Perutah for a Perutah and a half becomes an Isser D'Oraisa? That doesn't make sense, says Rabbi Krieger. So let me try to answer Rabbi Krieger's kasha. First of all, let's go back to the Sma. The Sma is telling me a halacha. He's telling me that a Perutah for a Perutah and a half is osir. I want to know, why is it osir? Maybe the Sma is wrong. Maybe the Sma is wrong and it should really be mutter. To which you will answer me that the Sma has to be right. The Sma is muchrach from the Gemara of Bota Yoreh Chaim. You're telling me how to learn the Neshech from the Parsha Bota Yoreh Chaim, or better, what we've excluded from it. So once you know that, you know the same thing for Pachot MiShaveh Perutah. So that only pushes the question back one step. If a kasha goes back one step, so I'm not asking how does the Sma know it, how does Chazal know it? Who told Chazal that Bota Yoreh Chaim is ribis ketzutza el hatayre tirasa? I don't think it's ketzutza tirasa. I'm telling you it's not ribis at all. You know why it's not ribis at all? Because it was not all three in the Karka. Who says you have to have all three in Karka to be mutter? Even if not all three in Karka, it's mutter. If it's the Hava is Karka b'Karka, it's mutter, or it's Kesef b'Kesef, and the ribis is Karka, it should also be mutter. The same thing will happen with regard to the Pachot MiShaveh Perutah. In all of these cases, if the Gemara is wrong, then the Zman is wrong. Question is, where did the Chazal get this from in the first place? How did they understand that to be the case? So, if we start with that as the beginning, and we see the Gemara is telling us explicitly that Botei Orei Chema is Ribis Ktsutza Midoraisa, so now the Gemara has told me the definition, according to Tosfos, obviously. He's told me the definition of Ribis Karka, which is Mutter, is only Karka b'Karka, and the Ribis is also Karka. And how did Chazal know it? Maybe it was Lehepech. So let me try to do it as simply as possible. It seems to me that if you talk about Botei Orei Chema, and you talk about the ribis of Botei Orei Chema, what's happening here? It's Karka b'Karka, and in the meantime he's living in the Karka. What is the ribis and what is the peroin? Let me go back one step. If somebody will borrow chitim for chitim and soirim, a bushel of chitim, and I will return a bushel of chitim, and together with it another bushel of soirim. Which is here the mois, and which is the ribis? Now, I know Rav Moshe, and I'll make it simple and say, forget Rav Moshe. I can disagree with Rav Moshe, who says he's right, but I don't think that it's necessarily steered to Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe is talking about when you return. He says that when you return Karen and Ribis, you're always returning the Karen first, and then you're telling the Ribis afterwards. That was in terms of whatever it is, whether you were Ofer, whether you weren't Ofer yet in the meantime, whether you're going to be Ofer in the future, or you're Ofer with every Perutah. I don't think what he says is necessarily a steer to what I'm saying, but even if it is, I think that you have to understand this problem in these terms. I understand that when I am returning chitim bechitim usairim, that every time I give you a couple of grains of wheat and a couple of grains of barley, I'm giving you both keren and ribis. They're ma'uriv zebozeh. How can I separate one from the other? The fact I said chitim bechitim v'soirim, two separate meaning, doesn't make a particle of difference. I can be masalik uzuzeh. I can give you soirim instead of chitim. I can give you all soirim, give you all chitim. The way I give it back isn't terribly relevant in terms of ribis, in terms of the Isa ribis. Maybe, not for today, there is such a thing as a havav, so b'so, which is chayiv asol, and not the tashlumim. I don't want to talk about that. It's not important. It doesn't make any difference. Certainly when it comes to repaying, I can be masalik b'zuzeh, which means basically that I am returning every time I make any payment, any partial payment, is a payment in one together with the other. So in Botei Orei Chema, what's happening? In Botei Orei Chema, I'm going to give you back the Karka, and in the meantime, you're getting the Harvocha, the Schar Dira, you're getting mois for that. In the mois itself, who tells you that the Schar Dira is the ribis? Maybe it's part of the tashlumi for the Karka also, and when I give you back the rest of the Karka afterwards, that'll be the rest of the ribis. So if it's all mixed up together, then if the Torah tells me that it's Torah hitirosai, then you're telling me that when you have ribis and keren mixed up together, that that there's a little bit of ribis and a little bit of keren. When you make a payment, it's both for the keren, it's paid for the ribis. That I see in the halacha of Botei Orei Chema. It's not a chiddush. Chazal weren't machadish that. They knew that when I'm borrowing chitim and soirim, that's how it works. So it must work that way with regard to Botei Orei Chema and Karka. The Botei Orei Chema and the Schar Dira for the Karka, they're both there together. So once they did this, it's Ribis Gomer. If it's Ribis Gomer, then how can you do this? It must be Hatira Hitirosai. So from that we derive what we've been saying the whole time, that whenever you have Ribis either in the Karka or ribis in the halvoah, there's an iser ribis. The only time it's going to be mutter is if you have karka b'karka, and the ribis is also in karka. Now, this makes sense.
How is Rabbi demonstrated? If we're trying to figure out how did Chazal know that it was Ribis Vatori Tirasa.
Because they knew about Chitim and Suri.
Okay, but
and then they took it
that's
to
not Karka. Meaning, if the alternative is that anytime any of the think pieces here are Karka, there's no Ribis here, so then this doesn't have to be Ribis Vatori Tirasa. This is Ribis Karka.
Sorry, let me try again. They knew that whenever I'm returning both Ribis and Karen.
Right, but the point Rabbi's trying to make is that how did Chazal know? I thought the question Rabbi's trying to answer is how did Chazal know that this is not just Ribis Karka and that's why it's mutter?
How did Chazal? One second, let's go back again. How do they know this not just Ribis Karka?
And that's why it's mutter, as opposed to Ribis Vatori Tirasa.
So the Chazal knew that because they realized that in every tashlumin there is tashlumin of both Karen, of both Karka and Ribis. So it's not Ribis, it's not Karka b'Karka. It's
we need Karka b'Karka.
We need Karka b'Karka, but it's not Karka b'Karka. It's Karka b'Kesef.
Cool.
It's Karka b'Taruvis.
Right. Who said we need Karka b'Karka? I thought that was the question. Maybe if the Ribis is Karka, that's enough.
No, well, my question was, how do we know what we are mimayit? Maybe we're mimayit only when there is Karka and Karka, or mimayit is halvos Karka, or the halvos Ribis alone.
Right.
So what they're saying is that look, you see in Bote Orechema that there is both of these together, and you have both. You have halvo and Karka, and you have tashlumin and Karka. You have halvo and Ribis, and you have a tashlumin in mois together with tashlumin in Karka. So you have them both mu'uriv together, and the only way this can be mutter is if you tell me that the only thing that's mutter is Karka b'Karka with Karka for Ribis. That's otherwise I'm left with a problem. If you tell me everything is all, then I wouldn't be able to get started in the first place. This makes sense only if you tell me that the Isser Ribis is a taruvis of both the mois and the karka altogether. Let me finish. We can go back because I think it becomes simpler as we go along. Now, and it should be short. The point that we see is that whenever you have a tashlumin, you have a taruvis in a tashlumin. And whenever you look at any part of tashlumin, you have to see what it is. Is it what the Torah was mimayit, or was it not what the Torah was mimayit? It makes sense to talk about ribis and karka and say that if I have karka b'karka and I pay money, that the karka was the karka and there's the money, and therefore this has to be an issa ribis, otherwise all bets are off. How? Because we're mamayat karka, otherwise it would be heter gomer. However, when I am talking about Perutah and Perutah and a half is different from a half a Perutah and 3/4 of a Perutah. If I take a half a Perutah and I pay back 3/4 of a Perutah, and I have little coins, each one's a MiShaveh Perutah. So there is ribis and keren in each one of these small coins, each of which is less than a shaveh Perutah. So I'm in the clear. There's been no Perutah in the halva, and there's been no Perutah in the tashlumin. In the taruz is also nothing. There's no tashlumin of a Perutah and no ribis of a Perutah. However, if you talk now about karka, if you talk now about a Perutah and a Perutah and a half, there it's different. A Perutah and a Perutah and a half, my ribis is only half a Perutah. But however, if you look at everything that I've given you back, if there's a taruvis in the Perutah and a half, then there's a taruvis in the Perutah as well. I've got a taruvis of keren and ribis in the Perutah gufa. If I have a ribis in a taruvis in that Perutah gufa, where was the Torah mamayed? The Torah was mamayed at best either alvo poch MiShaveh Perutah or a ribis of poch MiShaveh Perutah. But here, when I gave it back to you, there was in the original Perutah, there was Karen and Ribis. And the Karen and Ribis was what each one of them was in this Shavah Perutah. There was a shear of a Shavah Perutah, in which case the Smaz Halacha is absolutely correct. When you're talking about Karka b'karka. So we know what we're mamayit, we know what we're not mamayit, and the Torah wasn't mamayit this, the Torah was mamayit only Karka b'karka and Ribis Karka. However, when you come to money, it's totally different. When it comes to money, a pruta for a pruta and a half is like to be mamayit, because in the pruta that I'm repaying, the pruta of the pruta and a half, there is ribis and there is keren, in which case I have given you back ribis in that keren. And some of the terasud, alvo of the shava pruta, and here there is a shava pruta, which is both keren and ribis at the same time.
Even though
Now,
each of them is going to be part from share pruta.
In the prutas, they're both there.
But they're both part of share pruta.
But they're both, but each one's a pruta. I'm giving it back for both.
They're both
You're going to
represented-
charge.
they're
You're
both
going to
represented in
right,
the pruta.
but I can't be mamayed from that.
But their value, even though their values are
Right. Now, what this means is that if you go back now to Rav Moshe, now it sounds as though I'm saying exactly the opposite of what Rav Moshe says. Rav Moshe says, first in, first out. Whatever you pay first, that goes against the keren, the rest goes against the interest. I'm not sure that's true. Again, if you have to go back to look at Rav Moshe carefully, I think that Rav Moshe is only talking about when you're over the Yisr. He's telling me, look, it doesn't make sense to me. I have chitim and serim, and it's chitim for chitim and serim, and I give back chitim and serim, and I borrowed chitim, and I'm giving back serim first. Are you going to tell me that the serim is the keren necessarily? I borrowed chitim. What do you mean I'm paying back serim? You're telling me that the serim has to be the keren because I gave it first. Just because I gave it first doesn't mean it has to be the keren. Whatever I give back is the chitim, is the keren, and the ribis. What it does mean to me is that what if I borrow chitim and serim, and Rahman al-Islan, the borrower is no longer here. He, of course, was over on Lisasim and all of Neshech, but for the comes to the time of the Peroin, he never paid it. You're going to tell me that he's over for the Peroin also? He never paid it. He didn't pay the ribis at all. And if you'll ask me, was he over on the Peroin of ribis? How can you be over on Peroin of ribis if you didn't pay it? But by the same token, it doesn't mean that in the original return of chitim and serim, there wasn't taruvas of chitim and serim. I was paying for the keren, and I was paying for the ribis, but there can't be an issa ribis until you've satisfied the keren. You have to make the complete payment of the keren plus the ribis in order to be over on issa ribis. I don't think Rav Moshe says more than that. And if he says more than that, so the Sma disagreed with him. I mean, otherwise I can't answer the Rebbe Kveger's kasha. But to answer Rebbe Kveger's kasha, I think I have to establish what I said before, that we always have a taruvis, and the difference between between Karka and Karka is whether what you're excluding and not being applied to Iser is something which is not doing to Kesef in any which way, or whether you're dealing with something which here the Sof Kosov and Perutah. Sof Kosov is a Perutah and it's Kesef, therefore it's Bechal the Iser. Okay? I managed to keep it short. Yeah, sure.
If someone made it's 9, the first thing I'm giving back is when you rent and then you have Karen or the other way around, we should follow that specification, or it's automatically
mortgages where you pay back the
yeah.
Mortgage where they'll credit it to the Karen and not to the. That's if you make a partial payment. Usually comes Karen and ribis together. You make one payment, so much to retire the principal and get equity, and the rest is for the ribis. But they'll make it Tanai Mefurish. Straight for the Karen and nothing for the ribis and the ribis.
The other way. The other way. Straight to the ribis.
Straight for the ribis and nothing for the Karen. And you keep on, then you have to keep on paying the ribis on the
portion
Karen.
all the way then, they take
Right. Now, can you make such a deny? And l'may nafkamina?
I just want to know, is this Sarah you're saying a Torah Sarah, or it's like Das Menelat? I'm like, that's more. Is that like Okay, the assumption of Chazal is that's how people think, so that's why you're giving back. But I think tonight it's not that way, or no, the Torah, or some reason this is objective. It's automatic.
Again, I ask Lamai Nafkamina because I can think of it in either one of two ways.
So
No,
this
look.
small-
A type of moments doikaim, and what the Torah is telling me is what we assume ordinarily. And if I want to be master, I'm not necessarily a master mashakos of a Torah, right? So if you want, in theory, you could make it tonight the other way around. I'm not paying Karen. I'm not paying Ribis. I'm only paying Karen, and the Ribis will all be for later. Or the reverse. I'm only an Avarian. I'm only paying the Ribis now, and the rest of Karen will leave for later. I think Moshe would probably agree that if I wouldn't he? Why shouldn't he? He's telling me that this is the way halva works. First, I have to pay the Karen, and then I pay the Ribis, as normal Seichel B'nai Olam. And if I be master in advance, I'm paying you only Ribis. So you could easily say, if I want to do that, so I'm master the Ribis in advance. Or you can turn around and tell me that you are a master Mashakos B'Torah. You can't have Ribis. There's no Karen. What's the Ribis for? Unless you talk about Ribis Mukdemes, then it calls into a new category. I paid the Ribis in advance before I got the money altogether. And, it's like I was Marech the Chayv. It was I gave you more time to pay the Karen. Now, if you want to take an ordinary loan agreement and different guises that you're presenting, how would Ramosha deal with them? I think he would want to examine the text. No, the words. The words are very crucial here. The lawyer, the draftsman, he doesn't care about the text necessarily. But I think it would depend upon you word it and how you structure it. L'may nafkamina. L'may nafkamina is whether you're over in Yisur or Moshe. And if you want to be Mamait in the Yisurim, you'll be careful how you do this. You want the Yisurim to be as late as possible, not as early as possible. We'll worry about whether it's in Yisur there called Perutah or whether it's how many times you pay. But certainly you would want the Ribis to come at the end the way Ramesh assumes. But I don't know why you can't stipulate differently. And at worst, it'll become Ribis Mukdemes, at the very worst. Only the Nusach would have to make it clear that this is a kind of a Ribis Mukdemes. It's not hard to write that kind of Nusach. What they're presenting in the bank, I don't really know. We'll have to take it and take a magnifying glass and figure out what it means. But it's not such a hard job. It depends on the way it's written.
Good. Next week.
And they meet on Wednesday.